and welcome to our 5th episode of Baking with Chicken. This is my assistant, Shark Tank, and today we will be making tiger nut cake. And we're using this cookbook from Tasting History with Max Miller, and we are going to be making one of his recipes. So today we're going to be making tiger nut cake, which is an ancient Egyptian dish. So first we are going to add our tiger nut flour. Shark Tank, sit. So first we are going to add our tiger nut flour, including 4 cups of. Tiger nut flour is made from the tiger nut plant, which comes from Egypt, and this dish was made during ancient times in ancient Egypt. So now that we've added our 3 cups, we are going to add our date syrup, which we need half a cup of. Shark Tank, if you remember, was in our last video, she was in one of our videos, which was the blueberry muffin video, taste testing. So Shark Tank's been in the kitchen before, and now she's here doing what all the chickens are supposed to be doing, which is helping me bake today. Now we're adding the date syrup to the tiger nut flour, which is going to make it stickier so we can cook it. Now, if you get date syrup, don't put it in the refrigerator, which is the mistake that we did. And as you see, it's extremely hard to get out of the bottle. So if you do get date syrup in a bottle like this, don't put it in the refrigerator, or it's very, very hard to get out. And it looks like Shark Tank's found a little bit of our date syrup and thinks it's delicious. So that's very good. Okay. Now that we have our date syrup, now that we are getting our date syrup out, now that we have enough date syrup, we're going to scrape it out into the bowl. And now that we've scraped it out into the bowl, Sharky, we are going to stir it up with something a little cleaner. But we want to make sure we get all the date syrup out, because we're going to be using it in our recipe. So now we're going to use a spatula, and we're just going to stir this up until it's thicker. As you see, the tiger nut flour is a different color. It's more of a brownish. The tiger nut plant was used for a lot of things like flour today in ancient Egypt, which is why we're making this dish from ancient Egypt. So now that we've stirred in our date syrup, we're going to add our warm water. We will be adding a tablespoon at a time of our 1/3 of a cup of water. We're just going to slowly add this to get it sticky. So we're going to add a tablespoon at a time, and we're just going to stir this up. And we may need more or we may need less according to the recipe. So now that we are stirring this up, we are just mixing it, getting it wet. We're just going to keep adding tablespoons until it makes a thick dough-like consistency, which is what we're going for. The tiger nut cake is, yes, a very simple recipe. Very, very simple. And it was made a lot in ancient Egypt. And in fact, there's pictures on some Sharky. In fact, there's pictures and carvings of making it in ancient Egypt today. So we're just adding our water, and as you see, we do need a little more water to make our dough, which is perfectly okay. We'll just add a little more water, which we have here, about another tablespoon. We're stirring that, and now that we're stirring this, here we have our dough, which is now in a moldable consistency as we need. And if you do need a little more water, that's perfectly okay. And as me and Sharky have to do, you'll most likely need a little more water. Now that we have our little more bit of water, we are going to start adding this the way we work with the other, a tablespoon at a time. Sharky, no. Just so that our dough is wet enough for us to be able to make it. And as you see, we're getting it to the thicker dough-like consistency, which here we have, if you have clumps in your tiger nut flour, which you most likely will, just crush it up when you come across them. Shark Tank. So now we're just going to add a little more water to this so that it's that thick consistency, which we now have here. Now we are going to get a pan, which we already... Now we're going to get a pan, which we're getting now. Now we have our pan here. We are going to add our 1/4 of a cup of olive oil. Now we're going to add our 1/4 of a cup of olive oil. Here we have our 1/8 of a cup, since our 1/4 of a cup is dirty. We are going to have our 1/8 of a cup. No! Don't jump on the stove! Okay, so now we're going to add our 1/4 of a cup, which we're adding 2 because this is a 1/8 of a cup. We're just going to add these to the pan. And now we are going to put the cover back on, and now we're going to put this on medium heat, and using our wooden spoon here, we're just going to get the olive oil all over it. Now, if you're doing this with ghee or butter, you want it to melt, which we're doing this with olive oil, so you don't need to worry about it melting. Now we're going to add our tiger nut flour dough here, pouring this into here. We're going to just scrape off everything that's on our spatula, and we're just going to keep moving this around long enough for it to be toasted. But we have to also keep it moving at all times to prevent the tiger nut dough from burning, which we're doing here. And we will be back once this is done toasting. You'll need to do it for about 4 to 5 minutes. Now that our dough is finished toasting, we are going to take it off the burner, and we are going to put it on some aluminum. And now we're going to get some aluminum foil. And now we're going to take some aluminum foil and just put it on that. And then it will, so now we're taking some aluminum foil and we're going to put that and put our tiger nut dough, our toasted tiger nut dough onto that. And then, we'll wait for it to cool. It will cool for about 10 minutes. And then we will start. And then we'll see now that we're getting this dough onto our aluminum foil, we'll see you when it's cool. Our cooling time is over, so now that we've finished our 10 minutes, we are going to mold our tiger nut cake dough into the shape of a cone on the tin foil. As you see we're doing here, we're just going to make a flat bottom, making a cone like this, so that it has this cone-like look. Now we're going to add some date syrup, which I've already put on a plate here. Sharky, no. Could you come down here and do this? Sharky. Now we're going to take our date syrup and we're just going to drizzle it along on our tiger nut cake here. And we are just going to drizzle it along Shark Tank. So we're just drizzling this along. We're giving Sharky a little bit of date syrup too. And we're just, as you see, we're just drizzling it so that the top is covered in date syrup. And I would recommend having more date syrup optional when you eat it. And now we are going to have this. Now we're going to put this in the refrigerator and we'll see you when it's completely cool. Our tiger nut cake has cooled, and now we're going to see what my hand ruby is.